On this date in 1962, this band called the Rolling Stones decided to go in the studio for the first time. It was Keith Richards, it was Mick Jagger, it was Brian Jones, it was pianist Ian Stewart, and drummer Tony Chapman. A little Rolling Stones trivia for you. It was not Charlie Watts yet. He was in this thing called the Regent Street advertising job. They were pining to get him to join the band, but he's like, I'm good. He looks like an advertising guy, or he did when he was still alive. He would later join the Rolling Stones, but they went in for their first demo tape. And now they're catching some flack about some things they're doing on the road. Their next show coming up here in a couple of nights. I forget where it is. But they're playing a concert, and if you go to vote.rollingstones.com, vote.rollingstones.com, they're allowing fans around the world to vote on a song that they'll play in concert. And they usually give you 4 songs, and usually they're deep cuts. If you request a song or a comment on their vote page of a song that's not on that page, they don't read it. They don't give a rip. You can imagine what everyone wants to hear, because the Rolling Stones several weeks retired Brown Sugar for a lot of different reasons. A lot of rock and roll Rolling Stone aficionados are like, wait a minute, Brown Sugar has been played 1,136 times live by the Rolling Stones. Jumping Jack Flash, the only song that's been played more by the Glimmer Twins live in concert. So why aren't you playing the song? We are certainly in a different political time. Race equality, all those things. If you listen to the words of Brown Sugar, you know what I'm talking about. It is an anti-slavery song, but there are some things about whipping women in it and everything else. And so they're like, maybe we just shelf that song for a little bit. Not to say we can't bring it back, but maybe right now, in the culture we live in, and the Rolling Stones, who have played like 150 years now, maybe it's time to hang that song up. Well, their Rolling Stone fans aren't happy about it. We'll talk about that song and, of course, that story coming up in just a few minutes here on Tony Kurre Radio. By the way, I posted on my Twitter page this morning a video because we've all met that crazy woman, that crazy bee. And, yeah, women, there's crazy guys too. But as a woman who's pulling up outside some dude's apartment, and she's obviously breaking up with him or she's kicking him out, right? And so all of his crap's in the trunk of the car. And he's getting his stuff out, and as he's getting his stuff out, she backs over it. Been there. And then he's like pissed. He's screaming at her. The video is hilarious, by the way. You got to watch it. It's great. She pulls off, and so he runs up to the car. What are you doing, you crazy, blah, 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 blah. Well, then she tries to run him over, and he and he does his best bull impression, and she ends up hitting the building not once but twice. It's hilarious. If you get a chance to go to Tony Kurre Radio on Twitter and see the video, it is hilarious. And every guy watching that video go, yep, been there. Had that crazy one. You can check that out. It's hilarious. And it brings up a lot of things that go on with our social media posts, because we post a lot of things we talk about here on Tony Kurre Radio, including Stephanie Abrams. Do you know who she is? Stephanie Abrams is this rockin' news gal from the Weather Channel. She's the one that I think when they had the eclipse, was it a year ago, a couple years ago, whenever it was, and she was actually on air crying, and people were kind of like, dude, it's an eclipse. She was touched by it. She's so passionate about the weather. So my dad, God rest his soul, who passed away from cancer about 5 years ago, every time I'd go up to his house, 2 things would happen. First, I'd say, I'm never doing what my dad does, because my dad does things that just dads do. And now I'm doing all those things. And the second thing is that I always knew was that he's going to be watching the Weather Channel. My dad would watch the Weather Channel for like 20 hours a day. He's like, it's great because the program is always changing. Weather's never the same. So every time I tune it in, I know I'm getting a new show. And I'm like, that's a good point. Between the Weather Channel and Andy Griffith, that's what we watched. Now I'm finding myself, from a comfort standpoint, watching some of their shows. So every morning when I get up at 4 o'clock, I go into my office, which is upstairs. We're down here in the Classic Rock Studios here at Tony Kurre Radio. And I watch Stephanie Abrams, and it just brings me a sense of comfort. It's my mashed potatoes for the day, right? It's my comfort food. Well, she has a birthday today. She is 43 years old, and she just retweeted my post, and they just showed it on the Weather Channel. Pretty cool. Greatly appreciate her. Also, we just played a song from STP. Scotty Whalen would have been 54 years of age today as well. So we'll get into that story a little bit later on. You kids into the Squid Game things? Netflix's biggest show by far right now, 111 million viewers for Squid Games. I have not seen the show. I'm assuming people that are watching us Facebook and also listening to us on Tony Kurre Radio have heard about this particular show. It's some type of competition where you either win something or you end up losing your life. And so evidently, see, back in our day, we can never wear our costumes to school. But just, I don't know if Halloween wasn't as big back in the 70s and 80s as it is now. Halloween is getting to the point now where it's starting to mirror Christmas, right? Because, I mean, we start celebrating Christmas a month out, 2 months now, 3 or 4 months out. Halloween, dude, people are putting crap up in their yard in September. It's crazy. Some woman across the street has a skeleton up year-round. Maybe her dead husband. Come to think of it, I haven't seen him in a while. And so people are into the Halloween thing, and I get it. And so my daughter and my 2 sons, when they celebrated Halloween, could wear these costumes to school. And, of course, there's other things that go on. They do the trunk or treats or whatever in our neighborhood. But now they're telling kids up in New York, and this is a widespread situation where they're no longer welcome to wear their squid costumes to school because of the squid overtures and what the show's actually about. I don't know if I'd allow my kids to watch the show just based on what I've read about it. I know a million people are commenting right now. I've watched the show. It's fantastic. It's great. Blah, 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 blah. But something to think about if your kids are going to be wearing the squid costume. Speaking of costumes as well, too, an interesting story out of Disney. They announced yesterday, are you a Disney person? My sister, who is 5 years older than I am, or 3 years older than I am, and her husband have been taking their child, who is now 30, to Disney World every year since he was born. They're big time into the Mickey Mouse ears and the whole 9 yards, and I love it. It's great. It's a great memory for them. And so every year they've been going to Disney World. They're going back again in Florida coming up here in February. And so Disney World announced yesterday, Disney Universal, announced they're going to be raising prices on admission into their parks. I get it. They've been hurting. They were losing like $1.5 million per park per day during COVID because obviously no one could go. And now because of demand and everybody wants to get back to normal post-pandemic, we're still in it, but we're getting there. They're raising their prices a little bit, and it doesn't seem to be deterring any of the Walt Disney faithful to be going to their parks. Well, now there was a guy and a girl who walked in the park the other day, and he was wearing a shirt that said, I gave her the D. And the D is the Disney D, right? And then she's wearing a shirt that says, he gave me the D. And by it looks like something that looks like a Peter. I mean, when I first saw it, I was like, that's a penis. And I'm like, okay, that's not cool. Listen, I'm all about funny shirts. I'm Tony Kurre, for God's sakes. Ain't nothing I haven't done. I'm all about funny shirts. Pick your time, as my Dr. Josh Klapow teammate would say, read the room. It's not something you want to be wearing to a wedding or something. Maybe a bachelor party, but not a wedding. But so he's got the shirt saying, I gave her the D, and she's got a shirt saying, he gave me the D, and people were looking at it, and now we're trying to figure out what the D is. There's one thing I can think the D is, and the fact that she was wearing a shirt that said he gave me the D was pretty funny. First of all, it sounds like a venereal disease. If you said she gave me the S or she gave me the G or she gave me the what, I get it. I wouldn't wear it to flipping Disney. So a lot of people were commenting on it, and police got called into the situation and asked them to leave, to which they did, or change your shirt. Can't wear that kind of stuff to Disney. It's the last homage to a family atmosphere, right? I get it. And I'm totally cool with it. You can wear whatever the hell you want. You can do whatever you want. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. That's fine. You can say, you can drive, you can do whatever you want in life. We have free will, but there's ramifications, responses to everything you do that we don't socially accept. And of course, wearing a shirt that says, I gave her the D is probably not one of those things you want to be wearing to Disney. It almost sounds like maybe it was a prank or someone that was trying to push them through to just to wear it because they posted the picture. So we'll talk about that story coming up in just a few minutes right here on Tony Kurre Radio. And also another interesting story, which I think is pretty cool. We have Dark Side of the Pooch coming up. Let me just do an infomercial here for you real quick and listen up because this is super important. We are a classic rock station. We play classic rock. I handpicked every song we play here, and I love every song we play. I play deep cuts. I play stuff that you just don't get a chance to hear very often. I do play Sweet Home Alabama and those things too, but I like to play songs because if you listen to other terrestrial classic rock stations, they play the same crap over and over and over and over again. And if I have to hear Open Arms one more time, I'm going to shoot myself. So I play those Journey songs you don't get a chance to hear very often, or Once Bitten, Twice Shy. I go, my stick forks in my eyeballs. I can't do it anymore, right? So I created this radio station a couple of years ago, and the cornerstone for this station is obviously the Kurre and Klapow show, which is on the air right now from 7:30 to 9:30 live on the Tony Kurre radio app, or the KCast radio app as it's known. And then we replay it from 6 to 8. And so when I had this vision of what I wanted this company to be like and the station to be like on the app, and it's available anywhere, anytime. There's nothing worse when you're listening to a radio station, you hear a song you really like, and then it goes and you can't find it, and it's over, right? It's great because with the Tony Kurre radio app, the KCast radio app, you can hear us anywhere, anytime, any place, around the world, anywhere. It's always crystal clear, and sometimes you can't turn it off, which is a good thing. It just continues to play even when you try to turn the thing off, which is great because you should love your classic rock. So we did this thing, and as I was doing it, I realized that in order to be super successful with this thing and be a worldwide company, and now certainly we're here in Hoover, Alabama, and I've lived here for 33 years, and I love this community, and I know everybody here, and everyone knows me, and that's how we sell it, and that's what we do here. But as the region continues to get larger, and we're in the southeast, and we're in different parts, and I mentioned Sydney, Australia, I'll have 35,000 people in Sydney, Australia listen to Tony Kurre radio later on tonight because of the AC/DC show. So I was like, bing. The light goes off in your head, and I'm thinking, super cool. We need to come up with some unique programming. We need to come up with some really cool shows, right? So being this small business kind of thing that eventually will be a huge conglomerate, I hope. I don't ever want to get corporate. I want to be local, and I want to be personable. I want to take care of all of our listeners and everything that they want and all their wants or needs. We started creating these other shows, and so we've got 5 new shows that are going to debut next week. And we'll drop those one at a time. And I am beyond excited about what we've got to show you, to let you listen to. It's going to be awesome. Dark Side of the Pooch is the first show that we started a couple of years ago with Dr. Rab Stewart from the Rossbridge Animal Hospital. Great guy. We have great chemistry. The pet industry has ballooned up from like $60 billion a year in the United States. Just the United States, to over $100 billion, and the pandemic had everything to do with that because everyone was looking for comfort. They were at home a lot more. They could spend more time with their pets, and so they were getting dogs and cats and lizards and kitties and all those things. So we're going to talk to him a little bit later on this afternoon. We'll air that show next week. Can't wait to get on the phone with him and talk to him in studio here. It's going to be fantastic. Then we have something that really... it doesn't really fit the radio station, but because it's a classic show, I think it's going to go, and there's going to be some talk. A good friend of mine, Johnny Supreme's doing a classic hip-hop show, which will be playing here on Tony Kurre Radio. Then we have a show that Dr. Josh is going to be hosting that is going to be fantastic, and I already know that because we recorded a couple of shows yesterday. It's called Adapt or Perish. Dr. Alex Hubline, who is formerly with GT Software and now with a company named Adaptagent. They do all IT care. They do mainframe. They do all that stuff. We say it's where high-tech mashes up with classic rock. He's going to be doing a show. And then our 2 big doozies. At 12:45 today, I'm going to be talking to my good friend Damon Johnson. Damon, of course, of Brother Kane, Thin Lizzy, Black Star Riders, has written music for Sammy Hagar, Stevie Nicks. The guy has done it all. Several months ago, Gary Rosington, who is the last remaining member of Lynyrd Skynyrd, had some type of surgical procedure, and Lynyrd Skynyrd never stops touring. I think they tour even during the pandemic. I think they're on the road like 700 times a year. They do like 3 shows a day everywhere. Anyway, they reached out to Damon and say, listen, would you like to come play guitar? Would you like to play Gary Rosington's part in Lynyrd Skynyrd? To which Damon Johnson basically said his head just went, because anytime you get a chance to play in Lynyrd Skynyrd, it's like being asked to play in Ringo Starr's All-Star Band. You never say no. You're like, oh, hell yeah, I'm in. So he's been playing for Lynyrd Skynyrd for a while, so we're going to check in with him at 12:45, and that's part of the Damon Johnson Show which is going to be an hour show, which is going to air every week right here on Tony Kurre Radio. It's going to be super cool because it's going to be an hour of whatever Damon wants to talk about. I'm just holding his hand and I'm walking him down the path of rock and roll freedom. Do whatever you want to do. So his first show, he wants to do his favorite Lynyrd Skynyrd songs. Now, that could be cut and diced in a lot of different ways. Are they the favorite ones that you like to play? Are they the favorite ones you grew up listening to before? Could you imagine being a Lynyrd Skynyrd fan? And I know that Damon is. He's a huge Lynyrd Skynyrd fan. Big AC/DC fan, too. He listens every Wednesday night or Live Wire Wednesday. Could you imagine just you and me toying around with the guitar a little bit, listening to your favorite classic rock band, and then one day playing in the flipping thing? How cool is that? I mean, it's crazy, right? I mean, if Angus Young reached out to me, and I don't play guitar with a flip, but if he reached out and said, hey, listen, we're looking for a bass or a rhythm guitarist, you want to join the show? I think I'd grab my pants. Seriously, I'd have to take 2 pairs of pants because I'd dirty one of them every single time I get the phone call. He is blessed and could not happen to a better guy. So the Damon Johnson show is going to be coming up starting next week as well, and it'll be all him. And I the thing about what we're doing here on Tony Kurre Radio is freedom. We don't have to stick to a format. We don't have to stick to a particular song. We can do whatever the hell we want. I want to give listeners to Tony Kurre Radio, whatever that is. I want them to listen. I want to give you unique programming. I want to give you stuff that you not only tolerate, but you love. You listen to your favorite radio station because it's the only thing to listen to? Not anymore. Tony Kurre Radio is here for you. And then finally, this is one of those weird things. God places people in your life and weird things happen. And normally when something bad happens to someone else, good things happen for others. It's just the way the world works. It's life. Dusty Hill of ZZ Top passes away several weeks ago. I got a phone call from a buddy of mine down in Florida who knows Austin Hanks, who I used to bring on stage at a place called Rockingham Palace here in Birmingham. And I'm like, what's going on, dude? And he's like, Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top is a good friend of mine. And I said, really? And he calls me the day after Dusty had passed away. And he said, I'd be more than happy to come on your radio program and talk about the life of Dusty Hill and how I'm working with Billy. He's actually written songs for ZZ Top albums, and he now plays in Billy Gibbons' Big Bad Blues Band, which, by the way, also has the former Guns N' Roses drummer in it. How cool is that? And so he comes on air, and it was just a home run interview. It was fantastic. And he said, I love the blues. Do you have any room on your radio station to do a blues show? I said, oh, hell yeah, I do. Because without the blues, we wouldn't have classic rock as we know it. If you listen to the Rolling Stones and Led Zeppelin, half their stuff is remakes of Rolling Stones and blues music. So he said, well, I'll get on once a week and do an hour show and pick out some of my favorite blues songs. And again, I was like, total freedom. I was like, dude, I want you to pick the songs you want to play. I'll find them. I'll put them in. We'll put the show together. It'll be an hour of whatever you want to talk about. Because he's a rock and roll legend. He's living out there in San Fernando. He's got it going on. He's friend with Billy Gibbons. He's friend with Guns N' Roses. He's got all these connections. And I'm like, whatever you want to do, man, I'm just here to put it together and let you shine, right? So I said, by the way, he said, do you mind if I put Billy Gibbons on with me? And I was like, again, changing a pair of pants, right? I said, that'd be fantastic. So our first guest on Blues Almighty, which will be airing next week here on Tony Kurre Radio, is going to be Billy Gibbons. And I've already heard a part of the interview. And then he calls me the day and goes, hey, here's someone here who wants to talk to you. And it was Billy Gibbons. He's like, hey, Tony, what's going on, man? I was like, oh. And the first thing you want to do is say, can you please say, how? I couldn't do it. So we got some really cool programs coming up here on the Tony Kurre Radio. I hope you're looking forward to it. It's going to be fantastic. It's all going to be starting next week here. This is the Kurre and Klapow Show. We're on from 7:30 to 9:30 every Monday through Friday morning, again from 6 until 8 for the replay. For some reason, we're still trying to figure out exactly when people stream, listen to podcasts, blah, 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 blah. But we're getting a lot more listeners at night because most of the stuff we get into is pretty deep, and we get out there, man. We push the envelope, not for sake of doing so, but because we're two guys and we got a lot to talk about. We talk about cool stuff. You'll never hear our type of content on any other radio show in the country because we're not FCC regulated. We can do it, and you can hear us everywhere. We have fans everywhere, so we're super excited about that. But listen again later on tonight from 6 until 8, and, of course, you can also check out our podcast. We have 2 or 3 podcasts that come out every day through Audio Boom and iHeart Radio. So if you go to Kurre and Klapow to search a podcast, and you can listen to this podcast. We run those every single day. A couple other things happening in rock and roll history, and then we'll get back into some classic rock. And again, you're watching us on Facebook Live. You can also hear us on the Tony Kurre Radio app. It is KCast Radio, KCast Radio, iOS and Android. It'll be switching over to Tony Kurre Radio here in the next few days. Elvis Presley played a show in Los Angeles on this date in 1957. And was told after the show that he could not wiggle his hips on stage for the next show. Can you imagine? I'm thinking about the Super Bowl show we just saw with Beyonce and J-Lo a couple years ago, and I'm thinking, could you imagine 60 years ago them saying, sorry, dude, you cannot wiggle your hips? First of all, it's almost impossible not to do when you're listening to Elvis Presley. Something's got to shake, right? To which, of course, the next night, they filmed his entire concert just to make sure, and he changed nothing, and they let it go. Probably because there would have been a hell of a riot. If, in fact, that had happened. We mentioned the Rolling Stones in 1962 with drummer Tony Chapman. Charlie Watts would join the band later, cut their first demo tape at the Curly Clayton Studios in Hillsbury, London on this date in 1962. Also on this date in 1964, Caesar and Cleo. Caesar and Cleo got married. You know who that is? Sonny and Cher. Sonny was kind of an old creep. He was 31, and he was dating this 18-year-old gal. I would have married her. Her name was Sherilyn Sarkeesian LaPierre, also known as Cher. They would change their name to Sonny and Cher, and of course their marriage, incredibly, would last 12 years. So that's a little news going for you. Also on this date in 1979, this guy named Mark David Chapman, remember him? This was the day he bought a 5-shot .38 special for $169. He would use that a little over 6 weeks later, using it to kill John Lennon. And also on this date in 2013, a guy is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. If you ever get a chance to go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and check it out, it's strong. Even if you're not into classic rock or any type of music, it's just an incredible museum. Lou Reed, the influential songwriter and guitarist who paved the way for glam, punk, and alternative rock, died of liver disease at the age of 71 on this date. Reed led the Velvet Underground in the late 60s and enjoyed an outstanding solo career. And, of course, we all know about Walk on the Wild Side. Lou Reed passed away in the state in 2013.